All right, good morning, everybody. We are back in action. Peches Amud Aleph. We're going to start again from the Mishnah quickly because we're going to finish up this parak today, the 9th parak, and begin the 10th.
Exciting.
Hashem.
Yeah, amazing.
So the Mishnah says, Kli alach, if I have liquid measurement utensils, mekadshines halach, they're going to consecrate liquids. Umidos yavesh mekadshines yavesh, and the dry measure utensils are going to sanctify that which is dry. Eina kli alach mekadshines yavesh vel yavesh mekadshines halach, but they don't flip, right? You can't have the wet sanctifying the dry and the dry sanctifying the wet. Kli ha-kodesh shenikvu, if we have a whole utensil that has a hole in it, if you could still do their service with it, so then me'ein malachtan shehayu. Thank you. That would probably be good. Just in case shehayu osin v'hein, that the malach they would do v'hein shleimim mikadshim, then they're fine, right? As long as they can continue to do the service that they were supposed to do. V'im lav, but if not ein mikadshim, then they cannot. V'kulan ein mikadshim el b'kodesh, and all of them only work inside of the azara area, right? Because outside they're not servicing anything, so therefore they don't have power outside of the azara. Okay, so now, okay. Says the Gemara, Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Lo shana ela midos, aval mizrakos mikadshin. This is talking about the measurement utensils, but the bowls themselves can sanctify, because even though the bowl itself may be used for a liquid or a solid, they're meant to hold both things, because that's the mixing bowls or utensils. Shenamar, the pasuk says, Shneim malayim solas. When the Nesiim were bringing their korban, it says that they brought these bowls of silver and ladles of silver, and both of them were filled with solas, with flour. So they kept flour in them, even though this is a bowl which could be used for liquids. Nevertheless, since they were bringing their korban for flour, you see that it could be used for both. So we're not talking about only the measuring utensils. Those are the ones that were specifically used for liquid measures and for solid measures, but the mixing bowls themselves could sanctify either one. Amar le Rav Acha mi Difti the Ravina. So Rav Acha from Difti says to Ravina, Mincha lacha hi. So he says, well, one second. He says, is a mincha, is that liquid? I mean, in at the end of the day, so they brought their korbanos that they had their flour mixed in with. Once you had flour and oil mixed in together, it's not really a liquid so much, it's a dough, in which case you really can't learn from there that it can sanctify a liquid. So he says, well, what really happens is even if you've got it mixed together, if you've got the oil and the flour mixed together, you've got chunks of flour in there anyway. So they're not completely mixed up. So therefore you see...
Some dough.
So there, you've got some dough.
Some dough that's not really like dough, it's very sticky. So that's going
to be liquidy, and then they've got chunks of flour in there. That's going to be your solid, and we see that the utensil can be mekadesh both. So that's how we're going to see liquid and solid. E-bois, or the other way to look at it is mincha legabe dam ki yavish dami. As far as the dough is concerned, considering your comparison is blood, which is the liquid that would be sanctified in a utensil, it's pretty solid, right? That's considered solid. So therefore the point is that it's a solid, even though it's mixed together with oil and it's a dough and it's not a firm consistency, nevertheless, it is a solid. So therefore we learn that solids can be sanctified in a utensil, in these bowls and ladles. Amar Shmuel says, Klei shores ein mekadshin el shalemin. So he said that the service utensils are only able to sanctify if they are whole. Ein mekadshin ela malayin. They're only able to sanctify when they are full, not meaning that the utensil is full, but they sanctify in a full measure, right? So you have to be able to when you bring your mincha offering, see, this is good. You're going to bring a full isaron of flour as part of your, as what you bring as your korban. Let's see if he has the amounts here, right? You're going to bring your isaron as flour. Yeah, see? All of your flour offerings are brought in measurements of isronos, right? The amount of flour is 3 isronos, 2 isronos, 1. So therefore, if you have put in half an isaron, that's not going to sanctify, because that's not a sufficient measurement of flour it's insufficient to be able to activate inside the bowl to be able to make it sanctify. So that's what the measurement, the Gemara is saying here, that it has to be a full measurement of flour in order for it to sanctify, a measurement of an isaron. And ein mekadshin ela mitochon. Also, the sanctification occurs inside them, meaning that if I guess you have some kind of I would say that this something is on the outside, but I'm thinking that if there's some kind of stand. What did they say over here? Right, we're going to see what it means later on. What the intention of the inside means, right? V'amri la ein mekadshin ela shleimin u'maleim u'mibafnim. And others say that it means that these utensils sanctify only if they are complete utensils, if they have a full measurement, and they are inside. They are inside, right? Which implies that they are inside the courtyard, right? Not that they sanctify inside the utensil, but the utensil is sanctified inside the courtyard. My beinahu, what is the difference between these two opinions? Iki beinahu birutze midos. If you've got some kind of heaping measurement, right? Let's say the measurement then goes outside of the utensil, it heaps up over the top of the utensil. Right. Does the utensil sanctify that which is heaping over the top? If you hold that it's a utensil and it sanctifies inside the azara, then this is inside the azara, it's inside the utensil. Right. If you say it has to be inside of the utensil, then anything that's above the top of the utensil can't be sanctified. B'masnisa tana, we learned in a brisa, ein mekadshin ela shleimim umaleim umitochan ubifnim. That this brisa puts all of these things together, right? That it's all four of these things. They're not like there wasn't an opinion that said one versus the other, but it's all of these things. They have to be sanctified when the utensils are complete, when they are full measurement, when it is inside the utensil and inside the azara. That's what has to be. Amar Ravasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ravasi said, Rabbi Yochanan lo shanu ela she'ein dato lahosif. That's also only if you have no intention to add on more than what you're putting on. So Rishon Kodesh, right? Then anything that you are as long as you have in mind that you want to keep adding, right? We said that it doesn't sanctify that which is inside the utensil. So then, if you have no intention of adding on any more, then it's not going to sanctify. But if you're just like scooping in and you're still planning to scoop more in until you finally have the full measure, then it can sanctify the entire thing once you have the entire amount, right? And then it's also going to sanctify each part as it goes, because even though it doesn't have the full measurement yet, because your intent is to scoop the whole measurement in. So therefore, even if you get interrupted halfway through and you only get halfway, it seems, according to his opinion, the half is sanctified, is my understanding, because you're intending to get all of it in. Tanya Nami Hachi. We have a brisa that supports that statement as well. Meleim, right? That the Nesiim brought their korban, they were meleim solis. They were filled with solis. Ein meleim ela shleimin. The word mole here means, right, doesn't mean that the utensils were filled to their brim with flour. Ela shleimin. They were full, complete esronim, right? It was in the measurement of the esronim, right? They weren't missing from the isaron that they were supposed to bring. Rabbi Yossi says, Masai. When is this true that you need to have the full amount? If that's only if you put some in and you have no intention to add, then you better have the right amount in it. But if your plan is to keep adding, then Rishon Kodesh, then as you're putting it in, every scoop that you put in is sanctified, because you're going to wind up getting the entire amount. Okay, next. Ein kli alach mekadesh, a liquid utensil cannot sanctify dry measurements. Amar Rav says v'yitim Rav Asi, and some say it was Rav Asi. Ein mekadshin li karev, of a mekadshin li pasel. Right? What does it mean that something is sanctified? We have two different types of sanctification. One way we say is it's sanctified in order to be brought as a korban. Right now it's sanctified and you can use it as a korban. Another way to say it's sanctified is that this is now sanctified, and therefore, if you take it outside of the Beis Hamikdash area, you can ruin it, right? It's leveled up enough because normally if I take a bag of flour and I bring it into the base of Mikdash and then I bring it back out again, that's nothing. But once I put it in a service utensil, that doesn't mean that it's now ready to be offered as a sacrifice, but it does mean that it's sanctified enough that now if I take it in, once it's in the service utensil, and I do something that's going to invalidate it, like taking it outside of the base of Mikdash, it will become invalidated. So that's Ravasi's point here is.
And if the flour is not yashan,
Everything is yashan, right? You can only use yashan, right? There's no question about yashan. Yashan is a requirement for sure, right? You have to definitely have everything yashan, right? Because you can't bring anything that is from last year's, from this year's flour, right? So now, if you are a mekadjin, so you're right? We don't mean, Ravasi's point is, we don't mean to say that in this this liquid utensil is sanctifying. It doesn't sanctify it in order to as if I put a dry item into a liquid utensil, it doesn't sanctify it to make it kosher to be brought as a korban, but it does sanctify it enough that it can make it so that it's puzzle and it can ruin it. And now that if it goes outside of the azara, or somebody's teful yom touches it, for example, so then it's going to become puzzle and can't be used. So I couldn't then take it and pour it back into a new utensil right now, right? If I take dry items and I put it into a liquid utensil, I could pour that into a dry measurement and that would be fine, right? But once it's in the liquid utensil and I take that liquid utensil outside of the azara, now it becomes invalid and I can't use it again for something else. Some who taught what he was saying on this other item in this Tosefta. Ein mevian menachos nesachim uminchas behema ubikurin minha meduma. Right, we're not allowed to bring korban minchos. Nesachim means is the wine offerings, and the mincha offerings, the flour that comes together with the animal offerings, and the first fruits. You can't bring that from meduma, which is when truma mixes together with regular produce, and now you've got this mixture. Kohanim are allowed to eat it, right? Because what's the worst thing that can happen? It's truma. Well, Kohanim can eat truma anyway. Nevertheless, right? Since a regular Jewish person can't eat it, you can't use this as a korban because it has to be, in order for it to be a korban, it has to be otherwise permissible to the regular Jewish population. Vein tzarich lomar me'or lo v'kilayim, and for sure you can't use flour or products that there's a mixture that when these items come from orla, which is the produce in its first 3 years that it's being grown, you can't use that. Those fruits that are grown during the first. Those are totally forbidden. That's correct, and that's the point. And Kahal Yereim. Also, if you grow flour together with grapes, you can't use that produce either. Those are totally forbidden. And so, for sure, if you can't use truma, which is permissible to Kohanim, for sure you can't use this orla and Kahal Yereim. Vim hevi lo kiddush. And if you do bring them, right, then they're not sanctified. That produce is not sanctified. It's not valid at all as a korban, and it cannot be sanctified. To which Amar Rav v'itema Rav Asi, to which Rav said, and some said it was Rav Asi, that lo kidesh li karev. Right? When we say cannot be sanctified, we mean that it cannot be sanctified in order to be brought as a korban, because it's invalid for a korban. Aval kidesh li pasel, but they are sanctified to the point that they now cannot be used as chulin, and now they have to be burned. Right? You can't say, oh well, this is now able to be used in some other capacity. Now that you've sanctified it, it gets that elevated level as well, and now it's completely useless, and now it has to be completely burnt. Right? That's as far as that is. Right, but as far as the most of these offerings, when it comes to bikurim, of course, you don't need to sanctify it in a utensil. The bikurim are put in a basket and then laid by the mizbeach. Right. So those don't get sanctified, but it got thrown into the mix together with all of the other items in this list. Okay, Tana Rabbanan, Rabbi's one. Kli kodesh shenikvu. If I have a utensil and it gets a hole in it, ein matichen oson. So then you can't put lead in it in order to seal the hole. You can't fix it, right? Well, you can't, or or you can't hammer it out, I guess, in order to you can't thin it out around the hole in order to seal the hole. And you cannot drip lead into it in order to seal the hole. You can't patch it, right?
The welding.
Yeah, can't fix these utensils, right? You've gotta melt it down and make a new one, right? Can't use the same one. Why? Because it's just ein derech eretz. Is what in first sense. It's not the right thing to do in the Beis Hamikdash to use repaired. We don't like to treat the Beis Hamikdash in a lowly way, right? We don't use repaired broken items. Right. So therefore,
itself.
Correct, and the Mizbeach same, but the Mizbeach itself was from a different pasuk, right? The Mizbeach itself told us it has to be whole and complete, right? But this is a utensil issue that it's supposed to be a nice utensil. Nice utensils don't have patches on the outside or hammered out holes or things like that. That's not what you do. Mm-hmm. Therefore, nifkimu ein mesak nosan. If they get blemished in some kind of way, we don't fix them. Right? We don't fix them. Sakin shenifgam, if you have a knife that it gets unsharpened, ein mashchisen es pigimasa. We don't sharpen it. You don't, file it away and sharpen it back up. Nishmita, if the blade of the knife gets separated from the handle in machzirno, so you don't put it back in. Abashol omer sakin mitarefes. There was actually a situation where they had a knife and it would make trefos. Now, loosely, trefa is when you have a hole in the lungs or you have some other damage to the animal that's fatal. This was a knife that was, and so they were slaughtering it, was creating nicks in the windpipe or the esophagus and the trachea. If it was creating those nicks, so then it was ruining animals. It was creating nevelos, really.
The knife was very dull.
Well, that's the issue. The knife couldn't have been dull because they had to have checked it beforehand, right? So the knife was fine. It just happened to be that it was made out of a soft metal and it would often get nicked during the shechita process, causing problems with many of the animals that it was shechting. And therefore, nimnu aleha kohanim viganzuha. The kohanim got together and voted to get rid of the knife. Which is interesting that they needed a vote, right? Yeah. They just have the head Kohen get together and throw it away. They took a vote, and the Kohanim said, let's get rid of this knife. This knife is clearly not of fine craftsmanship or of good material, therefore creating problems. Let's get rid of this knife.
How right? Did they bury? Like how they just did kind of that's a good question. Theoretically, you could melt it down, like the metal, the utensil, the metal belongs to the Beis Hamikdash, so theoretically you can melt it down and make a new utensil out of it.
Didn't those knives have Hashem's name engraved in it?
No, the knives did not have Hashem's name engraved in it. No. It's just plain knives. Tana Rabbanan. Our rabbis learned, Big Day Kahuna in Usanosam Maisa Machat. Oh, I forgot that book. Okay, but it's okay. We have this one. I had a great book. It's on my table with a bookmark.
Right.
I was like, when I get this tomorrow, I'm going to bring this book. Okay, I might show a couple of things. But when we're talking about the Kohanim's garments, okay, so the Kohanim's garments, there's multiple. I wanted to show that we have one picture here, which is pretty decent. But this book that Rabbi Miller gave me that his friend wrote had all of the shitos, has pictures of all of the different opinions on how the garments were made and how to interpret. So when we see pictures like this is one of the opinions, but okay, but it's good for us. We have one opinion is good for us. Okay. When you make the Kohen's garments, you're not supposed to make them needlework, pieces of fabric sewn together, like my suit has a piece here sewn together, here sewn together. Rather, it's supposed to be elamaisa oreg. It's supposed to be completely woven. And that's what this picture shows, that there are no seams, right? It's a woven garment. They wove it into the right shape.
How do they keep it together?
Well, it's woven, right? The material, the fabric gets woven together, but it's all woven together in that shape, which is, kind of a craftsmanship trick to be able to do it, right? In the pictures that I had from this sefer, it indicates that potentially the sleeves were separate, right? Nevertheless, that there are opinions say that that was true of the most of the garment, but the sleeves were attached separately. And there's another view that they had a seam down the middle that was acceptable, but the entire thing was sewn as one piece and then one seam, not pieces that were sewn together. It was all one piece and then one seam that attached it so that it would create the round. the roundness of it.
It looks like a skirt or something.
Yes, it does, right? It's a robe, right? It's a robe. Okay? So it was all woven together. Why? Shenemar, Pasuk says, Maise Oreg, it's supposed to be woven. Right? Nisgalu, if they become dirty, Ein Mechabsin, Lo Beneser Velo Ba'ahal. You're not supposed to wash them with these detergents. Neser and Ahal detergents. You're not supposed to use these detergents. Because again, this is the same thing as the utensils. We don't want worn out utensils, right? So therefore, if the garments got so stained that you had to wash them with a strong detergent, then that was going to be a problem, right? That's going
to bleach
could destroy that. So you don't want to be able. You don't want to wash your garments. Rather, what they do with them, right? You probably had a lot of garments that were used, and what do? You tear them up, and they use them as wicks for the menorah and for those purposes. So they were used.
That's why the fire was so big.
They were used as wicks and things for other places, so they could be used, but they were not. But they were repurposed, recycled.
Yeah.
But they were not. But they can't just. That's what I'm thinking, right? Because you've got blood all over the place, oil. Okay. Yeah. But you can wash it in water, right? In other words, if you've got some stain, you can rub it out with water. Right. That's fine, right? But not with detergent, because the detergent already is like. I guess that's the connection is that we don't want to like sealing up the holes and the utensils. That's not how we are in the Beis Hamikdash worrying about the finances. We wanted to make it look grand. Amar Abaye says no, that's not what the so he says you're allowed, it sounds like you're allowed to use water, but how can that be? Because if the whole reason is that you don't want to treat them poorly, this is a question the Gemara is raising. Why would it be okay with water? Because the water is not going to completely remove the stains. That should seem to be worse, right? So water is worse than detergent. So Rabbi says, no, this is what it means. Hugu b'mayim, if they get dirtied a little bit, such that the water can completely remove the stain, mechabsinoson, then you can wash it. Because the water, it's not a big stain, and the water can remove it, then fine. But naser v'ahal, but if it's with the detergent, you need a detergent, so then...
You get blood on your garment, you need a detergent.
I would think, if you can, maybe if it's still wet or something, you might be able to wash it off quickly, you might be able to get it, right? But if it's a significant stain that you need to, so then... if it's the point is like this: if it's a light stain that even water could remove, then you could use detergent too, right? That's the point. There's nothing wrong. It's not detergent that's the problem. It's the problem is the severity of the stain. If the stain is a light, correct. So if you needed to, if it's a strong stain and you need a detergent to remove it, you can't use water either. That's going to be the problem. And some say ein mechabsin son kol iker. You're not allowed to wash it at all, right? Because anios. B'makom ashira, in anios b'makom ashiras, you can't act in a poor way in a rich place, right? The Beis Hamikdash is supposed to be a palace. We don't worry about laundering our garments, right? Just get a new one. That's what the king would do.
He doesn't use ties.
That's good.
I heard, I think that Kohanim, we're not allowed to work in the Beis Hamikdash unless they're very happy or something.
That is correct. Well, not allowed unless they're very happy. It was the common practice that happiness is a prerequisite to nevuah, right? In order to be serving Hashem, you should serve Hashem b'simcha, always. Okay, Tana Rabbanan, rabbis are me'il. The me'il of the Kohen Gadol, right, was kulo techelas. Kulo shel techelas. It was made blue, right, as is the picture. Shenemar's pasuk says, "Vayasas me'il ha'ephod kalil techelas." The me'il that was under the ephod, the apron, was completely blue. Shulav ketzad. What about the bottoms of it? Right, the hems of it on the bottom.
It looks pink. Some of it.
Does it? I will take your word for it because I am colorblind. But it does. It's supposed to be tchelas. Supposed to be a blue. The bottom. What about the bottom? What are we supposed to do there? So mevi tchelas ve'argaman v'tolas shani shizurin. We bring some thread that was blue and purple and crimson. And they twisted them together, right? And they twisted that together. The osos on kimin rimonim, and they would make kind of like pomegranates, shelo pischu pihen, that their openings did not, their mouths did not open yet. So they are, you can even see them small, and in the picture in my book they actually have pictures of pomegranates that don't, when they ripen, they're kind of egg-shaped. Before they ripen, before they open, they're kind of egg-shaped, and then they
get the crown on top, right?
That's correct. So they start off a little bit egg-shaped. So that's, if you could see in the little bits between the bells, there are little pomegranates that are a little egg-shaped. And ukemin konos shel knossos shebaroshe tinokos, and they're like the horns that were all on like the helmets that children, I don't know what they were playing that they had helmets on.
Or like Viking helmets.
Some kids like helmets. They sounds like they were wearing Viking helmets to play or something. I don't know.
They're on their scooters.
That's correct, right? Right. So so they had these helmets or something they would wear. So I don't know.
Actually, no, our school does mention this here. It says children, when tussling, would wear wicker headgear, on top of which they attach a certain cone-shaped object. The pomegranates affixed to the me'il resemble this object.
There you go. Okay, so cone-shaped
Wrestling
gear, right? Wrestling headgear.
Yep.
So that's interesting. Umevi shivim ushnaim zogin, and then they would bring 72 bells. Shebahen shivim ushnaim in volin, and in them they had 72 what they call clappers, right, inside the bells. V'tola bahen, and they would hang them inside the bells. And therefore, when the Kohen was walking, it sounded like the Sifrei Torah, right? They were like the jingling sound that the Kohen Gadol was walking around. He always had bells jingling. And shloshim v'shisha mitzadzeh, v'shloshim v'shisha mitzadzeh, 36 on one side, 36 on the others. Now, this is where, what does that mean on the sides? So if you take a look, it looks like it's round. One of the shitos that we'll see in the book has, well, first of all, it has almost like a, 1 second.
Go back to the drawing board.
Yes. We'll get that afterwards. we have a couple of them. That's all we need. You had on the side, right, kind of like a V that would go this way and a V that would go this way. So this is the Kohen's garment. So almost like a little nick, a little slit up in the side.
Like a hut.
Well,
Teepee.
well, no, it's cut into the garment, right? It's cut into the garment, right? So this is the Kohen's garment, and it had a slit. This will be the front over here, and this is the back. So I'm looking at the side. Correct, like tzitzis. And another view on it is that it was actually slit all the way up like a poncho, right? That it was all the way open the entire way, all the way up front, so that there was a front and a back.
For tznius reasons, if those were...
You had pants on. They had pants on, right? So that wouldn't, the tznius wouldn't be the issue. Okay. Fine. So 36 on one side, 36 on the other. Right? Rabbi Dosa, Amar Misham, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Dosa says that Rabbi Yehuda, Shloshim v'shisha hayu. There were only 36 bells. Shmonim esrei mitzadzeh, Shmonim esrei mitzadzeh. 18 on each side. What's the reason, the rationale behind the difference? In Yone bar Sason, Rabbi Inini, the son of Sason, says, Kemachlokes kan, kach machlokes b'maros negoyim. This issue of the number of bells is connected to the number of blemishes that Kohanim can see when they are looking at blemishes for tzaras. Ditznan, as we read in Mishnah, Maros Negoyim, how many types of blemishes are there? Rabbi Dosa ben Hurkinus Omer, Lamed Vav, there were 36 types of blemishes. Akavya med Mahalal, Omer Shivim Ushnaim, there's 72. Now what's the connection? The bells are making noise, that's mechaper on the Avera of Lashon Hara. We're going to see that each of the garments of the Kohen Gadol are going to be for atonement of specific Averos. So, the Lashon Avera of Lashon Hara...
The breastplate, what was that?
Well, hang on, we'll get there. Right? The bells are for Lashon Hara, and therefore the number of bells correspond to the number of types of Negoyim that you can get. So therefore, depending on whether you held there were 36 or 72, tells you how many bells there are supposed to be. Right? The Amar Rabbi Inini bar Sason. Lama nismecha parshas korbanos the parshas bigdei kuna. Why is it that the section talking about korbanos is written near the section of the bigdei kuna? Now, there was sort of two different places where it could be talking about. We say that Rashi says in Parshas Tzav, where it says Zos Torah Sa'ula, then it continues on and says Ochatos Zevachim, then it says Kaches Arnas HaBegodim, Aaron should take the garments and wear them. Others say that it's in Parshas Tetzaveh, where the garments of the Big Day Kahuna are worn, and then it tells you about the korbanos of the when they sanctified the Beis Hamikdash. But the bottom line, Big Day Kahuna and korbanos are written near each other in a couple of places. Why are they written together? Lo Marlach, to tell you. Ma korbanos mechaprin, just like korbanos create a kapara, af Big Day Kahuna mechaprin. The reason for the Big Day Kahuna is they create a kapara as well. Ketones mechaperes al shvichus dam. The ketones is, let's see where we get all of our garments. The ketones is this tunic, right? This ketones here, right? He's got a picture here, the ketones here. So he says this ketones is mechaper on murder. Now, Farshim point out, not the murderer, right? But we have an issue, and that is that murder doesn't happen in a vacuum. We had this tragedy today in Australia, and it is clear that when a government is making all kinds of negative comments about Jewish people, that eventually somebody is going to find it acceptable to commit murder. And that is the concept, right? When you have a messed up society, a problem in a society, then murders happen. Therefore, we, even though we didn't do anything, need an atonement. The ketones is the atonement for that.
That happened actually in Bondi by a Hanukkah event.
That is correct. Fine. Shenamar's pasuk says, interesting, it's our parsha from this week. Vayishchetu se'irizim, they slaughtered the goat, Yosef's brothers, slaughtered a goat, v'yitbelu es ketones, b'dam, they dipped his ketones in the blood. And so therefore, since they were thinking of killing him and murdering him, they did that instead. The ketones is mechaper for murder. Michnasayim, the pants, which are, I have a picture of the pants. Oh, there you are, right in the middle. Our mechnasayim, our pants, right? So that is, what's my place again? Mechnasayim mechaper agilu yarayos. They're mechaper on illicit relations because they're for tznius. Right?
Shorts?
So yeah, they're a little bit, they're shorts, yeah. I know. So I guess I can. It's a great book. I'll bring it tomorrow.
Okay.
Look. Shenemar pasuk says, "Va'aso lehem michne sevad." You're going to make linen pants lechasos basar erva in order to cover their private areas. Mitznefes, the mitznefes, which is the turban that the Kohen Gadol would wear. Mechaperes agase haruach. That's for haughtiness, right? Worn over the head. Things are above you. You think you're the best. Something's on top of you. Minayin, how do I know that? Amar Rabbi Chanina. Yavo davar shebegova, something that's on high comes v'yechaper al gova, and it reminds you, and it's mechaper on your haughtiness. Avnate, the belt, which is here, and the Kohen had one as well. The Kohen Gadol has one as well. This avnate mechaper al hirhor halev. It's mechaper on bad thoughts of the heart, because the belt was tied just under where the heart was, right? We said it was over here. Now, in the book, you'll see that there are actually multiple opinions as to exactly where. Some say on the heart. Actually, one opinion says over the heart, and so around the heart area is where it was. It was where it tied. It was tied. Hecha deise, because why? That is where it is. Choshen. The choshen is mechaper al hadinin. You would want to know why. What's the choshen for? It's on bad judgments, right? Because the choshen is a judge, right? The choshen mishpat. It's judging things, right? It makes it divine judgment. It lights up with divine judgment. Shenemar vasisa choshen mishpat, right? That's what it's called. So it prevents bad judgments, or provides atonement for bad judgments. Ephod, the apron, mechaper avodos kochavim, it atones for idol worship. Shenemar ein ephod utrofim, right? It says they're in pasuk this is in Hosea, right? That there will be places that there will be no king, there will be no officers, there'll be no korbanos, and there will be no ephod utrofim, which means that there will be no the apron, and there will be no idolatry, which in the loose explanation is there will be either, you can have one or the other, right? You have the ephod or idolatry, not that you won't have either one of the two, but there will be no ephod utrofim. Those two things are related. Me'il, this robe that the Kohen Gadol wore, is mechaper al lashon hara. That's mechaper on lashon hara, as we said, right? Minayin. How do we know that? Amar Reb China yavo davar shebekol v'yechaper al kol hara, right? Because something that makes noise comes and solves a problem with lashon hara, which is a bad sound. Vitzitz, and the headpiece up here on the Kohen Gadol is mechaper o azos panim, haughtiness, azos, or brazenness, not haughtiness, brazenness. Vitzitz ksiv, because it says by the tzitz, it says v'haya al meitzach Aaron, right? It says it will be on the face of Aaron, on the forehead of Aaron. Uba azus panim, when it comes to brazenness, ksiv umeitzach isha zona hayalach. That you have the brazenness of a prostitute, right? So therefore, that is on the in the psukim in Yirmiyahu, where they're getting the prophecy of the reason why they're going to be punished, right? But they call meitzach is brazenness, right? The open-faced, unabashed sinfulness.
But the tzitz has another purpose.
The tzitz also is right, but we said it was also for tuma, right? It was maratz for tuma. So it is also permits a korban which is tameh to be brought. So it seems interesting. One is that it permits the korban that's tameh to be brought, and it atones as well for brazenness. How it can do two things, a good question. We have to try to figure out how we can tie those two things together, right? Start thinking. It's a good Dvar Torah somewhere. V'hamar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Yeshua ben Levi says, Shnei dvarim lo matzinu lehem kapara bekarbanos. There are two things that we have no atonement for those things in karbanos. Umatzinu lehem kapara mimakom acher. But there's another way for us to get a kapara, even though there's no korban for it. Ve'elohein, and these are they. Shvichus damim, that is when there's a murder and you're not involved, but the society's ills of murder. V'lashon hara, and also lashon hara, right? How are we going to atone? Shvichus damim me'egla arufa, v'lashon hara miktores, right? The shvichus damim, right? We can get an atonement from the egla arufa, right? When we have this calf that is brought between two cities, so we can solve that unsolved murder and get an atonement for it. And lashon hara, ktores solves lashon hara, which is not what we said, so we'll hang on to that. But ktores is going to solve lashon hara. We burn ktores, and that helps lashon hara. Detani Rabbi Chananya, we learned that Rabbi Chananya said, "Minayin leketores shemechaperes." How do we know that ketores creates, even though it's not a korban? How do we know that burning the ketores on the inside of the Beis Hamikdash is going to help with lashon hara? Shenamar vayitinas haketores vayechaper al ha'am. By the rebellion of Korach, the people were dying, and Aaron took incense and he burned it and stopped the plague from occurring. So you see that the atonement for the lashon hara of the people from Korach was the burning of the incense that Aaron did, and so burning of the incense helps lashon hara. V'tani de Rabbi Yishmael, and we learn in Yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael, al mak ketores mechaperes. What is it that ketores atones for? Al lashon hara. Yavo davar shebechashai v'yechaper maseh chashai. So therefore, something that comes in secret, right? Lashon hara is a secret thing people talk behind your back, and ketores is a service that's done inside the Beis Hamikdash. People don't see it, so therefore, secret things solve secret things. Kash lashon hara, lashon hara. Kash shvichas damim, shvichas damim. We have a contradiction. You have two different things that are atoning for lashon hara, and two different things that are atoning for murder. So lo kasha. It's not a contradiction. If one is where you know who did the murder. If you know who did the murder, then you don't need an egla rufa. In which case, you need a kapara from someplace else for the other people. So that is what the ketonis is for. Ha de lo yadia man katle. But if you don't know who did it, then you need an egla rufa, and the egla rufa is going to atone for the city. I dia man katle. Bar katolu. 1 second. If you know who did it, you kill the murderer. That's the atonement. The mazid velo asrube. The answer is, yeah. Well, what happens if he does it on purpose, but there was no warning? So if he does it b'shogeg, he goes to golus, which is an atonement.
When you killed the murderer, did you kill the murderer because he killed a family member, or?
He doesn't have to kill a family member to be chayav for murder, right? Murder is bad, no matter who you kill. Don't do it, Yehuda. If you're thinking about it, it doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't matter. I just want to make sure that we're clear and realize in the Gemara, I don't want to leave that one vague. No murder, Yehuda. Totally bad. Okay, good. If I wasn't clear in Sanhedrin, I want to make sure I'm clear now. Nobody's allowed to murder anyone. Okay, good. So
Except for the family members.
Right.
That's right.
Yes.
So hab b'meiz, that's what Yehuda meant, right? The goal hadam, right?
Goal
If you're-
hadam,
the
that's
goal
it.
hadam, somebody
Yeah.
who's killed the shogeg, whether a family member can
Right.
do retribution, right?
Right.
That was acceptable. That's correct.
Exactly what I was.
That is what you were thinking. Sorry, I want to make sure we're clear. Thank you. Okay, bar katala. So he says now bar katala. So but however, if he did it on purpose, but nobody warned him, then he can't do a korban. He can't go to show. He can't go to Golos. He doesn't get. So how is the community getting atoned for this? The answer is that's what it's for. The lashon hara, a lashon hara, nami lo kasha. Also, lashon hara is not a lashon hara. Lashon hara is not a contradiction. Habitzina habefarhesia. Sometimes you have evil speech which is in public, sometimes in private. If it's in public, that's what the bells are for. If it's in private, then that's what the Torah is for. So therefore, you've got different types of lashon hara, different types of atonement. Hadronach hamizbeach mekadesh. Hadronach hamizbeach mekadesh. Hadronach hamizbeach mekadesh. So now, next time we learn the rules of the Big Day Kahuna, you will now have a deeper insight on them.
Yeah.
Now, this section is really great. Because it's very practical. And that is that the first line of the Mishnah starts off, Kol hatadir mechavero kodem es chavero, which the rule is, how do you know which korban comes first? That's what we're going to deal with. Now I know all my korbanos now. I know how they're brought. We know but what comes first? I've got multiple korbanos in front of me. The answer is number one. Whichever is more common comes first. Very, very practical because Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Chanukah is coming up. And so based on this principle, you are going to take out 3 Sifrei Torah. Which one do we read first? Which one second and which one third?
Sure.
So Parsha first because Tadir v'Sheino Tadir Kadam.
Second.
Rosh
third.
There you go. And that's based on Tadir v'Sheino Tadir Kodem. That's how you can remember which one.
That was just a guess.
Of course, the last, but now it's an educated guess. So the last one is going to be maftir because the last one is maftir, which means that you have to do Shvi'i has to be for Rosh Chodesh. Right? Sefer Torah has to be for that one. And that means that Shishi gets doubled up. For the Parsha of the week, you're going to read Shishi all the way to the end. Then we're going to do Hagba Galila. Then we're going to do Rosh Chodesh. And then we're going to do Maftir from Chanukah. And so now we've got our solutions, right? I've got to say Ritzei on Shabbos, and I've got to say Yala v'Yavo for Rosh Chodesh. Which one comes first? Ritzei comes first, Yala v'Yavo comes second. So it's a very practical halacha, right? Tadir v'Sheino Tadir Kodem. Hatamidim. So now it goes through. Korban Tamid Kodmin Lemusafin. Korban Tamid of every day comes before your Korban Musaf, which means that you come to shul and it's really Zman Musaf when you get there, but you are going to say Shachris first, not Musaf first. Shachris comes before Musaf. Korban Tamid comes before Musaf. Musfei Shabbos Kodmin lemusfei Rosh Chodesh. The Musaf for Shabbos comes before Musaf for Rosh Chodesh, right? So this always comes the question, right? It's Shabbos, it's Rosh Chodesh. Which Shmona Esrei do I say, right? Which one am I saying? Am I saying one for Shabbos, saying one for Rosh Chodesh? So it's going to be one for Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, as we're going to see in a moment.
Shabbos, but we with the Rosh Chodesh add-on.
So therefore, it's going to be Shabbos. You have to make sure that it's going to be for Shabbos. Shabbos is Kodem Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, when you get to the paragraphs in your Shmona Esrei, that you're going to say the Korbanos of the Musaf, you're going to see the Shabbos paragraph comes before the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh paragraph. Umusfei Rosh Chodesh Kodmen lemusfei Rosh Hashanah. Similarly, on Rosh Hashanah, you've got Rosh Chodesh and Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Chodesh comes before Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh Chodesh is more often than Rosh Hashanah is. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, Milvad olas haboker shel olas hatamid. By korban of Pesach, the maftir of Pesach, by the maftir we say on Pesach, where we talk about the musaf of Pesach, it says that you're supposed to do this musaf besides the korban ola that you already did ta'asu es eila. You're supposed to do these first. Okay.
Isn't this principle, okay, I'm going to throw a wrench in this. In terms of our benching, in our example we decided for Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Hanukkah.
Yes.
That's one.
Where's Al Anisim? I knew we were going to say that. So it's good. This is why some of I'm not going to rush through some of these pages. This is when we get to good practical halachic pages, it's good to talk about it.
Right.
Al Anisim is different. Why? Because we don't say Al Anisim. When we're saying Shmona Esrei, we don't say Al Anisim in Ritzei. Right? Where do we say Yalav Yavo, though? We say it in Ritzei. Right. Yalav Yavo, Shabbos, that's in Avoda. So the bracha having to do with Ubnei Yerushalayim, that's the Avoda section, because there are Karbanos, this is a day of Musaf, so you're going to put Shabbos. There's no Musaf on Hanukkah, right? Why is there no Musaf on Hanukkah?
Right.
Because it's not Deraisa, right?
It's
not in the Torah.
We do full Hallel.
We do full Hallel because you do Hallel when there's an ace.
So there was an open miracle.
The Gemara tells us that in Hanukkah, they were able to establish the days of Hanukkah as days of Hoda'ah and Hallel. They were days of thank you to us, saying thank you to Hashem and praising Hashem. Therefore, where do we say Alanisim in the brachos that have to do with thanking? No lecha Hashem Elokeinu is the bracha of thanking Hashem. Therefore, Alanisim gets placed there. Since we thank Hashem in the bracha and benching before we do the korbanos, we talk about the musafs. Right. Therefore, Chanukah's Alanisim is in a completely different place. As we're going to see, that this rule of Tadr V'Shein and Tadr Kodim only comes about when I've got both of the mitzvahs sitting here ready for me to be doing. However, if Rosh Chodesh is on Friday and then there's Shabbos, there's no question. I don't do Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh because one came before the other. Similarly, since I was in Nodeh first, so I have the obligation to say Alanisim, before I got to the section where I say Ritzei and Yalav Yavo, I'm not going to say Ritzei, Yalav Yavo, and then Alanisim. Right. How in Shmoneh Esrei, it's the reverse. Because when I get to V'yala Kol and I say my bracha of thanking Hashem, which comes after, which is Modim, where I say my bracha of thanking Hashem, which is after the bracha of Ritzei, Yalav Yava goes in that bracha, which is the bracha of thanks to Hashem. So therefore, Alanisim goes in the bracha of thanks. It doesn't go in the bracha of Avoda. So Alanisim doesn't conflict with Yalav Yavo and Ritzei. Only when I've got a conflict between the two. So that's why Alanisim is going to slip in front of Ritzei and Yalav Yavo. And there's going to be tons of different issues like this, where we're going to see in a moment. We're going to have some good, quick halachic discussions on some. I'm loaded up, but we'll see what we can get to. Okay, so now, says the Gemara, Minolan, where do we know this rule of Tadr Shvishenu Tadr Kodem? How do we know that? What do you mean Minolan? Minolan, can they come our time? You just read the Mishnah. The Mishnah doesn't always bring a pasuk. When it does, it's this pasuk, right? Believe it. This is the pasuk. No, Milvad Olas HaBoker. It says besides the Ola of the morning. The Ola of the morning says no. Dilma Tmidin Hain Dekad Mula Musafin. We might have thought it means like this. When you've got the Korban Tamid, that's very Tamid. Like that's every day. So everyday things beat a musaf, which is a sometimes thing. Every day beats sometimes. Mishum de tadire musafin lemusafin minolan. The question is, but if I got a musaf and a musaf is not every day, how do I know that I go with the more often musaf than the less often musaf? That might not be the case. So therefore, Amar Rabbi Law, Damar Kra. So the pasuk says, Ka'ela, right? That's the next part, right? Just you do these just like you do the other ones, right? So therefore, by korban, by Pesach, you're supposed to bring 7 sheep, and so it tells us you're supposed to do like this. Ka'ela tasu layom shivas yomim. You're supposed to do like this for 7 days. Ela ka'ela. Just like on the first day, the korban tamid is going that these are going to proceed. So also, this is just like the Tamid precedes these Musafim, so too there's another rule relating to precedence that comes from this, and that is whatever is more present, whatever is more common takes precedence. 1 second though, I need that to tell me itself that not only do I bring the Korban Musaf on the first day of Pesach, but I bring it every day. Why is it that we only recite full Hallel on the first day of Pesach and not every day of Pesach? Told you I'm loaded up, right? Yeah. Why? Because it's the same Korban Musaf every day. So therefore, the first days of Pesach, that's the first days we bring this Korban Musaf. Since we're doing the same Korban Musaf every single day, only half Hallel continuing from then on. Sukkos, it's a different Korban every day. Therefore, by Sukkos, we recite full Hallel every single day. So therefore, by Pesach, you're going to see half Hallel on Chol Moed and on until the end days.
I think the reason why we do full Hallel alternative because it was open miracles, right?
The Pesach is pretty open miracle too, right? But
Hallel follows the Musaf, a new Musaf.
Hallel is not going to be is not going to be the rule of Hallel, right? We're praising. Why do we say Hallel on some days? Some days because there's a miracle. We say Hallel whenever we brought a special Yom Tov Korban. Right? We don't say Hallel on Shabbos. But on Pesach, Sukkot, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, because we're bringing it for Rosh Chodesh, but we're not saying it for Shabbos, right? So, Again. So this is telling us, this word ka'ela is telling me that I'm bringing the same korban every single day. Imkei nichtov eila tasu layom. All then it would have to say is, this one you should bring every day. No, that wouldn't be enough. Because of eila tasu layom, if it says shivas yomim, says you should do this every day for 7 days. So havamina eila l'shivas yomim, I would have thought you take these 7 korbanos and you bring them over 7 days, 1 per day. So layom ksiv, no, you wouldn't have thought that because it says layom. You're supposed to do this every day. So therefore, I'm supposed to bring 7 every single day. Therefore, ka'ela is extra to tell me this rule of tadir v'sheino tadir. Vakasi ema eila layom aval shar yomei lo yodana kama. I might have thought that eila means layom, means I'm supposed to bring this offering on this day, but I don't know how many I'm supposed to bring the rest of the days. I know this is, so therefore, Amar Kol, the pasuk says, Tasu, shihu kol yisios shavos. You should do it, meaning that every day's action is the same. 7 on the first day, 7 on the second day. So therefore, there's no question. Without the kaf of ka'ela, I would have already known that I'm bringing 7 korbanos every day. The kaf is extra. So therefore, Abaye Amar migufei dekra. You can learn from the words of the pasuk itself. Imkain le makra milvad olas haboker. So meaning the pasuk itself says that this is the rule that always the one that's more common comes first. Imkain, if that's true, le makra milvad olas haboker v'tishtok. Because after all the pasuk would have had to say if it was only a rule by the korban tamid and not by the other korbanos, then all of it would say was bring this musaf besides the korban tamid and be quiet v'tishtok. Asher lo olasa tamid lamali. Why does the pasuk then continue on and say because it's a continuous offering? The pasuk is giving you the reason. You know why the tamid goes first? It's not just because a stam pasuk the tamid goes first. It's because it's more common. Lemeimar dehach de tadira tiktum. Because it's more common, that's why it goes first. Therefore, whenever you have this situation again where you have 2 things that are contradictory, you're always going to go with the one that's more common.
Right. Beautiful.
We always choose the mission to stop by, which is always the best.
It's always good, best to best. It's a good, nice, clean end.